Good morning, dear ones. It is wonderful to see you all again. This morning we shall speak of a number of things briefly. We shall begin by reminding you that most of you who hear these teachings made a conscious choice to come into this life and go through those experiences which are necessary for you to complete your 3D, overall 3D experience, and at least at some level to ascend. Many light workers, many people are experiencing many difficulties of every imaginable type. Understand that the moment you birthed within your heart a true, serious desire to know the truth, the moment you undertook in earnest a spiritual path, whether it was lifetimes ago or the lifetime preceding this one, or this lifetime, the moment you made that decision, as a free will being, in essence, you gave permission to go ahead and experience everything you needed to experience to complete that path. So there are many light workers who are moving quite rapidly from one experience to the next. So we would suggest an attitude of gratitude, attitude of rejoicing. Understand everything you experience, everything you go through is another step on your way to ascension, is another step on your way to rising above the need to experience third dimensional existence. We would like to suggest at this time that examination of everything in your life would be beneficial. What we mean by this is examination of everything to which you still give power. This would include belief systems, understandings, religions, scriptures, a particular person's teachings, books, sources, we'll say traditional sources of knowledge, non-traditional sources of knowledge, issues you have, issues other people have that you are inclined to make judgments about. All judgments. The list is endless, it seems, because it's all things third dimensional. This is not a question of any of the things you're examining being good or bad or right or wrong, because there is no good or bad or right or wrong. Nothing has any power, whether it be a thought, an emotion, a reaction, an action, an experience. Nothing has any power or significance other than the power and significance you give it. The only power is within. The only truth is within. The only truth is your divine essence and the divine essence of all that is. Many light workers have a tendency, well, it isn't just light workers, it's all people in the third dimension, but we're speaking at this time to light workers primarily, you who are hearing this. Many light workers tend to come to rest unconsciously in certain comfortable belief systems. Some are healers, some are psychics, some are channels, some are enthusiastic practitioners of the New Age, others are casually indulge in New Age beliefs. Whatever it is you've come to believe in, we would suggest approaching the possibility, at least, of putting it aside. The only truth is your divine essence and the divine essence of all that is. This is the essence of unconditional love. As we have said to you, it is only through unconditional love for yourself that you will come to experience unconditional love and have unconditional love for all others. We have spoken of this a number of times in recent teachings. It is only through accepting and loving yourself with all your warts and perceptions and everything else, whatever exists in that in the moment, loving yourself absolutely and unconditionally, because you're coming to see that your essence is God essence, your essence is divine. And truly, while you can have the intellectual thought and make the decision to view all other beings as beings whose essence is divine, you will truly not experience unconditional love, true unconditional love, where as a matter of natural consciousness you uphold the divine essence of everything. You will not reach this point until you come to love yourself unconditionally. Unconditional love is a natural flow of consciousness that upholds, treasures, recognizes the divine essence of all that is, of all beings. It's a natural flow, a natural consciousness, a natural way of being. And it comes from a heart that has rebirthed unconditional love for the self that is divine. There is still a fair amount of misunderstanding about unconditional love. It's a term that's bandied about a lot, of course, in the New Age and, well, throughout the ages. So we'll talk for a few moments about what unconditional love is not. It is not a feeling. It is not necessary that your feeling of unconditional love for others be experienced by a moving heart experience or an emotion. It's fine if it is accompanied by that, but it's certainly not a requirement. Unconditional love is not accepting the behavior of others or supporting the behavior of others. It is not enabling others' activity. It is none of the shoulds. There's no shoulds in there. A good person should do this. It's not that. Again, unconditional love is a natural flow of consciousness that recognizes the divine essence of all beings. Period. That's what it is. One of the most habitual obstacles to unconditional love is judgment, which we also have spoken of frequently. Another misunderstood concept on the higher path and in the New Age. Of course, judgment is all the things that you've come to believe it is, but it's so much more. Perceiving, you truly are reaching a point where having any perception about anything that has a concluding factor to it, oh, that is this. Anything that is a conclusion other than upholding the divine essence of whatever it is you're observing is judgment. It is very helpful, we find, in third-dimensional beings and in ascending beings understanding this, to understand that all negative action that you behold, all negative action, all negative experience, all suffering, all those things that seem to create suffering and result in suffering, all of these come from the collective consciousness of separation from God and from others. Everything you see around you in this world, the conflict, the terrorists, everything that to most is so troubling, it is all the result of a collective earth consciousness, a separation from God, from Creator, and from each other. That's the foundational truth of it. This is why we say there's no good or evil, there's no good or bad. And this is where so many Westerners get tripped up. How can that be? I was abused as a child. That was awful. Look what those people are doing to those people. Look at the suffering. How can that not be bad? Dear ones, it's not bad because the essence of all those participants, of all those beings is divine, because the essence of all the energy being created, third dimensional or otherwise, is divine. So you see an ascending being, a being who is moving to a place of absolute acceptance of one's own divine nature, absolute acknowledgement of one's own divine nature and the divine nature of all beings. As a being, as you move into this place, the sacred, divine, wonderful place of absolute unconditional love, you will come to see all that you once understood to be harm and hurtful and suffering. You will come to see it as beings experiencing the collective consciousness of separation. And you will come to see that all the beings engaging, because they don't know any better, because they're still caught in this holographic paradigm of the third dimension of separation, you will still only see their divine essence. You see, this is the difference between a light worker and those beings for whom you are creating the karma and the space and the reality for ascension, to follow you into ascension. There are those beings, most on the planet still, the majority of beings who are still caught in this third dimensional holographic creation of the third dimension. In order for the karma, the space, the energetic multidimensional reality to be created for those beings to rise out of this suffering, there needs to be a certain percentage of humanity who moves to a place where you come to see in them, those who have hopes of you, you come to see only their divine essence and uphold that absolutely. And as we said, this comes with upholding, recognizing, treasuring unconditional love for your own divine essence. That's where it begins. So it is time, for those who have ears, for those who are willing to listen, it is time to put aside third dimensional beliefs. It is time to cease taking refuge in those things that humans so habitually take refuge in. And it is time to begin moving to this place of your divine center, experiencing that and viewing all as that reality. Remember, this is why you were here. It's time to stop messing around. We don't say this as a criticism. We say it, of course, with absolute unconditional love for you as divine beings. You are the beings that humanity has put One way to look at this is that humanity has put their fate in your hands. We have spoken of those who have hopes of you. This is what we mean. We have spoken often about how key you are to this ascension process, and you are rapidly approaching that time when it is truly necessary for those who wish to continue with this to put everything aside that gets in the way and just be what you truly are. Know that every moment of every day we are with you and we ceaselessly uphold your divine nature, your glorious truth. And we can see you moving into this place as well. It gives us great joy. that is our message for today. We will take questions if anyone has questions.
Can I ask a question? Having a little hard time framing it, but just based on the use of envisioning or using an envisioning process to create your world, as in you see this, you reach out and see it or envision it as a larger aspect of yourself. Can you give some advice or some comment on how that plays in the cosmic world?
Okay, could someone turn the heater off, please? We are taking a look at your question in an attempt to understand it in a way that could give you an answer you can use. So please give us a moment. Many light workers, including yourself, are at a loss as what to do. Certainly there must be steps to follow, there must be techniques to use, and for some this may well still be the case, but it's only the case because it's expected to be so. So we would suggest to you to simplify things to the most truthful common denominator, which is that your essence is God, as God nature is divine. So is the nature of all other beings, and to let everything else go. This is behind our suggestion to examine beliefs and values and social conventions and issues, etc., etc. In essence, any judgment, any conclusion, any perception that does not support your divine nature, it does not uphold the divine essence of all beings, is not holding to truth. Now, we understand that this short circuits many people's brains as they attempt to process this and apply it in everyday life. It just makes no sense. And this teaching is very high teaching. It will not be understood with the brain. It will be understood intuitively. It's the Buddhist teaching of emptiness. We are not teaching Buddhism here. Other cultures call it something else. The Buddhist concept of emptiness is that everything is empty. The only truth of everything is only its divine nature. Any attempt to understand it beyond that is simply piling concept and illusion on top of truth. We say that the key to unconditional love for all beings is unconditional love for your own divine nature. So this is where most light workers, it would be beneficial for most light workers to concentrate on this as a starting point. Yes, of course, do your best to uphold the divine essence of all beings. But truly, for most of you, your primary obstacle to that is you still don't love yourselves. Let alone treasure your own divine essence. This is not a criticism. We understand why this is. The habit of separation, the habit of duality, the habit of perceiving oneself to be separate from everyone else and from God is so deep. As we have said, it is in your DNA. You are hardwired. You are programmed third dimensionally, not ultimately, not in terms of ultimate truth, but third dimensionally you're hardwired to duality and separation. So be kind to yourselves. Please don't judge yourselves. Of course you're going to keep moving for a while. You're going to keep moving back into a space of reacting to things that upset you and expressing joy into things that give you happiness. Because it's your habit. But you now exist multidimensionally. You now have our help as never before. The frequency, the energy on this planet is so high. The energy of your consciousness right now, compared to other humans, is so high that you can move beyond this programming by simply being that which you wish to be. Each time you declare, I am a divine being, I am, and I will recognize that I am presence in all that is. Each time you do that, you create that reality within your consciousness and you move closer to being like that ceaselessly. You move closer to existing in a state of absolute unconditional love, simply as a way of being. So, that is our answer. Self-love.
I'd like to ask a more mundane and personal question. At the beginning you talked about giving away our power, and I have a friend who's insisting that I am giving away my power because I moved into a condominium that turns out it had mold in it. And I've had arguments with the landlord, finally got him to agree to do some remediation on that, but my friend insists that I've given away my power because that's back in another state. And so I came out here to do work, get away from it while it was being cleaned up. And she wants to be certain that it's all cleaned up, that I haven't given away my power to the landlord, and that I need to get it all cleaned up because she's afraid to get near it or me, because she's very sensitive to mold. So she insisted that I ask you.
Well, then we must respond. So truly, everything you're describing is giving away power. Not in the conventional third-dimensional sense that your friend suggests. That's not what we mean by giving away power. And from our view, you have simply taken some responsibility to remedy a mold problem. So, which of course is necessary. As we said, unconditional love is not being a doormat or putting up with things that you don't need to put up with. we're speaking at a level far beyond this. Giving away power is listening to your friend as though what she's saying has some significance. And we're not saying don't listen to her as a friend and don't respect her and don't treat her with respect. What we're saying is when we say give away power, we're saying to engage in an experience or a belief system in a way that you give it reality, that you give it power. We understand all humans, including light workers, must deal with everything. You must deal with landlords and banks and mortgages and life partners and temporary partners. And you must deal with everything. And we aren't speaking of giving away power in the sense of your day-to-day reactions with people. That's something you can decide about on your own. We're talking about engaging in the third-dimensional holographic projection of this existence as though cause and effect can truly take place in it. And we are talking about cause and effect in a higher vibrational way. We understand this is confusing. The more you attempt to process this with your brain, the more confusing it may get. We would suggest doing some meditation and really just sitting with these teachings, with these energies. Perhaps a more foundational example would serve. Something that people habitually have given power to are their own emotions and thoughts. Most reactions and emotions that people experience are hardwired, they're habitual, they're karmic, which is why people have them. You've heard the term having your buttons pushed. This is just karma in action. Someone says something unkind to you, or someone rejects you. There's a response. Whatever it is habitual. What you are doing in living that experience, as that event happens, someone criticizes you and rejects you, you experience some level of something, pain or disappointment, whatever it is. It's because you've experienced that before in relation to that stimulus. What you are doing there, all that's happening when this person rejects you or insults you is an event has occurred, period. It has no power, it has no essence, it's just energy. It's nothing. Until you give it significance by reacting to it, treating it as real. This is what we mean by giving power. When you see that these people called terrorists have done yet another thing that you perceive as terrible, your perception that these are terrorists, your perception that these beings are separate from you, your perception and judgment that what they've done is bad or good, all of this is giving away your power. And none of it's true. The only truth of that we just described is divinity, is the divine nature of those beings who admittedly are thrashing around in this third-dimensional holographic existence they've created because of their collective consciousness, their collective belief in separation. Emptiness. The only truth of anything is its divine nature. This seems incredibly theoretical to many light workers, but it is a place to which you must move in order to come to this place of divine unconditional love for your essence and the essence of all beings. Are there any further questions?
I'd just like to take this opportunity to express my gratitude to you and the medium for this golden opportunity to truly remember who we are. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Sure. I have a question about money. I don't experience, money doesn't feel real to me. I just try to listen to what people tell me about how to manage money and create money, and I can't really relate. And if I need something, then I will buy it with money. But at some point, the money I would need to create more in order to care for myself. And I feel at a loss as to how to I don't know, I guess humans would say to better manage my money or make it seem real to be, or whatever it is that I need to do in order to take care of my physical body.
Well, first, we'll talk about you personally just for a second. Not all light workers are like this. Money is one of those things. Money and love. These are the two things. These are the two subjects that humans cause themselves the most distress over. And it's a little different for everybody, but the basics are the same. Now, one aspect of this for you, which we won't discuss at length, of course, because it's a group teaching, is you actually came into this world sort of with a foot in the spirit realm and a foot in the third dimensional realm. A number of light workers are this way for all kinds of reasons. In other words, third dimensional reality, it isn't just money that doesn't seem real. A lot of it doesn't seem real. And so, which is fine. The energy of money, the energy of abundance, as we have said so many times, is the energy of unconditional love, is the energy of the divine. A person who creates for themselves the energy of unconditional love, and we don't mean in an absolute sense, hardly anyone is there yet. If you were, you'd be ascended. We're talking about the energy, the power of unconditional love is so great that it only takes a little. And So as you, as other beings, move more and more into a place of unconditional love for yourselves and for all beings, then more and more the flow, the channels of abundance will simply open, and you will find that you are manifesting what you need and what you want, at first consciously. As divine creators, you will consciously do it, and then eventually you will move to a place where it simply happens. You are in that divine flow, and there must be abundance, because that is your nature. So we understand this is not practical, grounded advice on how to manage your money, but it's the ultimate truth on how to manage your money. Concentrate on what we're saying, on your own divine nature. Concentrate on moving even more into a place of unconditional love for yourself and all beings. And don't worry so much. There are people who tell you that you're lacking in certain ways and you don't understand certain things, and you tend to take this on and believe it, because that's actually your experience to some degree with this disconnect to third dimensional things a little bit. So we'll say, don't worry about it. Everything will be fine. And there's not that much of a need to listen to others in this. The more you can let go of all that third dimensional cause and effect and knowing and not knowing, the more you can let go of that and not worry and move to a place of calm abiding in that knowing and that awareness that you're divine, that God has your back, that we have your back. Residing in that knowing that everything will be fine. The only thing that will make it not fine is the occasional retreat into fear and lack that some people will still be going through. But you'll get over it. You'll move on. You're welcome. Are there any more questions?
I guess I could ask another one. A lot of people talk about ancestral karma, things that come through our lineage, and that it's not real, that we should be able to just move beyond it. But I seem to be experiencing it in terms of bad knees and a cataract, which my parents had and my grandparents had. And so how does one get free of that?
Well, understand that, first of all, there is there's many names for these things, and you've all heard them. Ancestral karma, genetic karma. This is something that has existed third dimensionally for all kinds of reasons. We won't go into the why and the wherefore, because now is different. You are moving into a time, and truly actually now exist in a time, where none of the old rules apply. So the bottom line truly is, the more you empower a belief in such a thing, the more you will create it. As we've said so many times, this is true for all of you, for all beings, actually. on Earth now, but especially for light workers of higher vibration, your creative powers are exponentially greater than they've ever been. So whatever perception, belief, energy you create, it will manifest faster and more powerfully than it ever did before. So this is good news. As divine creators, you can create for yourselves health and abundance and joy. You can create the space of existing in unconditional love and truly being that. This is another reason we say examine your beliefs. Things have reached a point vibrationally where ancestral karma, etc., it's getting much closer to the day when their only power will be the power you give them. And so this is the time. Even if you don't get it, this is the time to quit buying into all this stuff. And just be what you are. And we understand to many, things are reaching a point with light workers where the more intellectual, the more high-powered brain activity there is in someone, the slower they're going on the path. So some of the most brilliant people on the planet have reached a place of having such faith in their intellectual prowess that it's pretty much reached a point for many of them where, for the time being, they're unable to leave the realm of that intellectual activity. And this is something we've been talking about for years, of course. Some of you are hearing it for the first time. Some of you have heard it repeatedly. A very necessary aspect of spiritual growth is the willingness to put mind aside. The willingness to put aside that compulsive need humans have to understand. You'll never understand, not with your brain. You will only understand from within, from that place of inner knowing, that place of higher vibrational truth. That's where you will understand. The more intellectual activity there is in someone, the greater force they keep anchoring themselves with into the third dimension. Truly, when in doubt, go to your heart. With the multidimensional shifts we've explained that have taken place on this planet, it's shifted from third dimensional to fifth, fourth, and third dimension. We've talked many times about your new chakras, your newly awakened chakras, including your higher and lower heart chakras. One of the things that's happened in the course of all of this is that the center of consciousness from a human being has moved from the solar plexus, from that visceral place of third dimensional survival It has moved from the solar plexus to the tri-heart area. It has moved into your heart. Your very center of being has moved. Now the expansion of your consciousness, the expansion of your capacity for unconditional love is centered here. In your heart chakra and in your higher heart and lower heart chakras, all of these functioning as one. So when in doubt, just go there. Go there with unconditional absolute love for yourself and for all that is. Many of you will be experiencing times of confusion, profound change, what humans normally would consider loss as people leave the third dimension. So in times of confusion, in times of wondering what to do, we would suggest going into your heart and just being there and knowing that that's where safety is, that's where truth is, that's where absolute love is, that's where your true nature is. And just be that. Are there any more questions?
I have a question. I would like to clarify for myself this topic of ancestral karma, or cellular memory kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I heard you say that it's no longer required for me to process this karmic energies. And I am a creator, I can create my own reality, so I believe that I can do this, I can release this. However, my ancestors, of course, who have all passed on, I don't know if they're in a place where they can release this energy. So what I would like to do is take all this energy that came from them or belongs to them and transmute it into a higher vibration, then return it to them. So, is that proper or acceptable?
Well, your perceptions about it are perceptions. Understand that, and of course we exist. We're speaking to each other right now. We're speaking through this medium. You are speaking to us. We're using words. The brains of all of us are necessarily involved, all of you. And we understand this must be so right now. So no criticism when we say that we are discussing this in the realm of perception and belief systems. But we ask that you understand that the contexts within this discussion are actually incorrect in and of themselves. Your perceptions, everybody's perceptions of how ancestral karma works, their connection to you, is really not accurate. It's just energy. And so what we'll say, light workers, you included, will be dealing with things as you understand them in the moment. And with your understanding of these things now, we would say it would be beneficial for you to go through an exercise similar to what you just described, of, you could say, cord cutting with your ancestors, severing the karmic connections, it's not possible to sever the connections of unconditional love and divine energy, of course. And we say it would be useful because it will help allow you to just drop the whole thing and center in your own divine nature. You and others are rapidly moving to a point where everything that you experience you will be experiencing only in the light of your current energies about it, your current perceptions and beliefs. Light workers are reaching a point, you are reaching a point where the only thing holding you back from ascension are habitual beliefs and understandings. And we don't just mean in your head. As you said, you brought up cellular memory, so on and so forth. But things are reaching a point where your decision to simply let go and move beyond will bear result, and that will happen if you will do it. So it's a process. So we said there are many healers in the New Age on this higher path, and many beings of all kinds who have reached a point of being beneficial to others in a certain way. And we say to you, examine that. Not in a critical or judgmental way, but understand everything you perceive and experience and believe is simply something to move beyond. Everything up to this point has been a tool on your path. Everything you've been in past lives and in this life has been another step toward divine understanding. But at some point, it's necessary to let your current understanding go, to have a willingness to let go of even that and keep moving. You are very adept at manipulating certain kinds of energies, achieving healing in certain ways. Our suggestion is to understand that as simply another step on your path of growth, that there's no inherent truth to that that's any greater or lesser than any other inherent truth. It's just another step on your path to ascension. And we're not saying to healers, don't practice healing, because there's always going to be beings who can benefit from a certain, well, not always, but for the foreseeable future, there will remain beings in the third dimension who will benefit from what you have to offer. So use your own judgment in how you practice it. It isn't what you do, it's the consciousness with which you do it. Your healing capabilities, your understandings of certain vibrations and activities on certain dimensions are not you. They're just another technique that you've learned in the third dimension to deal with certain things. There's no inherent truth in them. The only inherent truth in anything is its divine nature. When we said examine beliefs, one of the greatest areas for examination are those things that you use to unconsciously define yourselves. Everyone has self-definition. It's just habit. I am this, I am that, I am a healer. I have these understandings. None of it is true. It's simply your perception at a particular point on your path. What else could it be? And rejoice in the fact that you've gotten this far. You are solidly, all of you, anyone hearing this teaching is well on the way to ascension. Now, it's a matter of letting go and being open, taking in energies, coming to that place of existing for the benefit of all beings, in a place of absolute unconditional love for your own divine nature and all that is. There's no other truth. Are there any more questions? Very well. Please know that we ceaselessly rejoice in your truth and in what you are and in what you're doing.